Hey guys, what's going on? This is Mr. Elliott, and I just finished doing my investigation for the science fair. And I'd like to guide you through what I did so you can have a chance to figure out how you would set up this project for your own project and modify it to meet your needs. A couple of things I want you to keep in mind while you are doing the project. It's important to document everything. I put these three ideas down: measure everything, take pictures of everything, write everything down. Just in case you need it, you can always get rid of extra stuff that you don't need. But at this time, you got to keep a good record of all of what you did so that you have a really good science project. So let me show you some of the stuff that I did. First of all, if you remember my claim, which was, how does the weight of paper affect the distance a paper airplane flies? Right? I use that to make my claim using the frame if, then, and because. And here's my claim. If three different paper weights are tested for distance flown, then the printer paper will fly the furthest because it is the perfect weight. Now, if you remember from my last videos, I had three different types of paper. I made the exact same paper airplane, folded it the same way, same size paper. The first paper is really light, it's a tissue paper. The second paper is just regular printer paper. And the third one is Bristol, which is kind of a heavy paper, a little bit thicker than construction paper. And I think my claim is that this one's going to fly the farthest because this one is too heavy and this one is too light. And that's based on some of the research that I did on how things fly. So, also want to show you the environment. This is my backyard, and I want to have a long, wide area. And I got walls on both sides. There's not as much wind. And I marked the spot on the floor where I'm going to throw the paper airplane from. And that's where I'm also going to measure from. It's consistency, it's what we call a control variable. Now, I also wanted to point out some of the problems I had to solve was that I needed to know where the paper airplane landed. Where shall I measure it from? And I decided to measure from the front end of the airplane right here and see how it lines up with the tape measure there. Right, so this is about 154 inches. And the other thing that I want you to keep in mind is that you should have notes when you're doing this, right? I use this piece of scrap paper to write down my initial measurements so that I could see and remember. Otherwise, you're just going to have all these numbers and you're going to forget them right away. All right, so I wrote down my measurements and let's look at the results of my experiment. Okay, airplane number one, tissue paper, didn't fly very far. You can see I did 5 tests because I want to get consistent data. I even took an average, and 56.2 inches. That's not very far. And I'm not surprised because of my research. I found that lightweight, really lightweight things don't actually fly that well. They need a little bit of weight. Okay, airplane number 2, printer paper. You can see it's definitely flew a lot further. Look at all my tests. 1, 212 inches, 2, 3, 4, 5. Really long, high numbers. And the average is 197 inches. Okay, now what about the heavy paper? Here's my airplane number 3. Flew pretty far. It actually flew about as far as the printer paper one, but if you look at the average, the numbers are slightly lower. Okay, so my conclusion is that the paper airplane made of printer paper had the longest flight of all 3 paper airplanes. Therefore, my claim is correct. And remember, even if your claim is not correct, you still have a good claim that you can use, and you're just going to have to explain in your summary that your claim turned out to not be true. We find that all the time in science. Okay, and now I want to draw your attention also to a couple of other things I used to keep my records. I found this model for folding a paper airplane. I used it so that I use the exact same style for all the airplanes. That makes it a control variable. And I'm doing a digital journal. right? You've been doing some of you on lined paper, and that's fine, but also a digital journal using Google Docs or Microsoft Word would be just as good. And as I work day to day, I'm writing down notes. What did I do? Right? And one last thing, I'm using Google Sheets to create this table with all of my measurements. These are the same measurements from before, but it's all in one place. And actually, I can also click Insert and Chart, and it'll make a graph for me. Look, I can see here's the 3 papers. The blue one is tissue paper. Look how small that is. The red one is printer paper, and the yellow orangish one is Bristol. And you can see the difference with each trial. It's a consistent result. And that's what you really want to get from your project. Okay, so if you are ready to do your project, keep in mind these things. Keep in mind, especially what I said at the beginning of the video, measure everything, take pictures of everything, write everything down, and then you'll be on your way to a great science fair project. All right, see you next time.